Hey guys, what is up? Kid here of Burn 1 with the Shadowverse Evolved channel, bringing you another deck profile, this time on D-Shift Rune. It is back. Everyone's favorite thing to do is take extra turns, and D-Shift Rune is positioned well in the current meta, so let's just go ahead and take a look at the deck itself. Alright, so here's the deck itself. I feel like this is the pretty much cookie cutter standard version of D-Shift. If you're looking to edit D-Shift for your local meta, I think this is where you start, and then you do some testing and make some changes from there. So let's just get right into the deck itself. We play 2 of Magic Owl. This is basically our 4th and 5th copy of Penguin Wizard in the deck. This card has been amazing ever since its release. It's a 1/1 with Rush that on play lets you discard a spell to draw a card, and then last word, discard a spell to draw a card again. Helps fuel spell chain very quickly, adds more consistency to the deck, which is very, very good. Insight, we're obviously on spell chain. Insight's a good card. It's also really funny when you use this on your opponent's turn to hopefully top deck the exact answer you're looking for to your opponent's board that turn. Lamplit Training of a Witch to Be is here in the deck as the Angelic Snipe, but what's really nice about this, at least in this here, is that since we're not using a lot of our Evo deck, we're able to play a 1 of Carrot. So the secondary text of Lamplit Training of Witch to Be, where if we have a Racing Fall on the board, it can deal 3 damage instead, is actually a real text now instead of just being a random, instead of this basically being Angelic Snipe, which is nice. It comes up occasionally, not too often. We have the room in the deck, might as well go for it. Agnes Tachyon, we play this as a 2 of. If you've played Uma or Rune anytime recently since Uma's release, this card's insane. It adds extra reach to all our removal spells, essentially, as well as lets us recycle spells from our grave, which is a great part on Evo. We actually play 3 of the Evo, and even though we only have 2 of the base. The reasoning behind this is because there are a lot of force plays playing around, and so there are a lot of times where they'll Agnes Tachyon away, or not Agnes Tachyon, they'll like bounce this card back to your hand, so you can play it again for another Evo, which is nice. It doesn't happen too often, but I figured that would be better than playing another Carrot, because I feel like Carrot doesn't come up as often as the 3rd Agnes Tachyon Evo. But like I said, on Evo, you get to select a spell your cemetery and add it back to your hand, and we still get the -1/-1 effect from before whenever we cast a spell. Penguin Wizard 3 of, we play 3 of the Evo. This is kind of part of our engine of just slowly whittling away our hand and deck to get to the spell chain threshold. Opening this in your hand is always really, really good. Chain of Calling as a 2 of, this card is very powerful. A lot of times before D-Shift have issues where sometimes you might be ready to pop off, but you just don't have any followers because you either bottom decked them all earlier in the game or something. So you have to like figure out how you can find them and draw into them. This is the way you do it. You can Chain of Calling into your Flame Destroyers and so forth to get you there, so you're able to pop off with your D-Shifts. We play this as a 2 of because I feel like 3 is too much since we're not needing it that often. Solid card all around, and doing it on your opponent's turn always feels good. Rime Wind, this card is for the Elephant match. It basically, prior to like their turn 9 and 10 Evos, Rime Wind destroys Elephant, just going for face on turn 6, which happens a lot of times if your opponent's not playing around Rime Wind, and this can catch them off guard and really mess up their tempo and everything like that. This is kind of our removal of choice for any really big thing, because for the most part, a lot of our other removal can handle the board, and anything else that's too big currently, for the most part, doesn't really Evo, and usually by the time it's something too big for us to handle with some of our removal, we should be able to be de-shifting in those turns anyway to close out the game. Sorcery Cache, I mean, we're in a D-Shift deck, top check 4, add a spell to hand, put 1 spell into grave, put the rest in the bottom. Always a good card, helps you find answers, turbo through your deck. It's a great card. Surefire Bullet is our removal of choice. Like I said in some other videos, the 4 damage on Evo is actually relevant in a lot of our matchups randomly, which is always very good. This helps us clear the board and so forth. Trail of Light, we're still in, spell chain here. This plays too well into a lot of our discard outlet stuff, so why aren't we playing Trail of Light? Make our deck even more consistent and have more feel for our hand. Merlin as a 3 of, as always, because Merlin is busted in Rune. We get to search for a spell so we can find our answers on 3, and then when we get an Evo, we can go ahead and cast a spell for free that costs 3 play points or less that is in our cemetery. And our main targets for this are right now Our Fate's Hand, as we had before, drawing 2 and recovering a play point is always good. Witch Bolt is also very good because we'll always have an Evo when we cast it with Merlin, meaning we'll get to deal the 5 damage and draw a card. Also, which is another inclusion here, is Concentration, which is good because a lot of times we just need to live 1 or 2 extra turns sometimes, and getting a heal 3 or a heal 6 over like 2 Merlins and still drawing a card and replacing a card in your hand is really, really big. So playing this as a 1-of to ditch at some point or play it even from our hand later is very solid overall. Plus 3 health means we just don't die to 3 Forte Evos essentially. Demonic Strike in here for the cheeky Merlin stuff, getting extra damage that way is always very good in the later games if need be, especially if our opponent is healing some and we D-shift and swing it with our Flame Destroyers and we need a little bit extra reach. Demonic Strike, Merlin, Evo, do another 3 damage is always a great way to close out games. Like I said before, Fate's Hand is a 1-of. This is one of our Merlin targets of choice that we want in the cemetery. Witch Bolt as a 2-of, it's important to have access to Witch Bolt in this. That's why I played as a 2-of, because if our opponent's playing Forest, for example, high roll and get like a 5/5 on turn 2. On turn 3, we want to be able to answer that 5/5 so we don't lose too much tempo and too much life, so we can prolong the game as much as possible. It's really important for us, and I felt like having it as a 2-of is more than enough, especially with all the dig we have with like Sorcery Cache, Insight, Magical, Penguin Wizard, a bunch of different ways to just find and draw cards to hopefully get into what we need. As always, this is our win condition Flame Destroyer. At Spell Chain 15, this costs 0 on the board. At 10, it costs 3, and then at 5, it costs 6. Obviously, the game plan is to get to the point where we have Spell Chain 15, dump like 2 to 3 Flame Destroyers onto the board, and start de-shifting our way to victory. Dimension Shift, as always, is our win con essentially. It will get you a lot of wins. This is how we close out games. The idea of the deck here is we want to push a little damage early on, and then be able to just pop off with 1 Dimension Shift to win the game. Sometimes you have to double Dimension Shift, which happens occasionally, and it's completely doable in this deck because of how fast we build up spell chains. Just so we have cards to banish for this effect, because if we banish 10 spells from our cemetery, the cost of this card costs 7 less play points. This card becomes 7 play points to play, and which is actually doable, whereas obviously 12 is a number we can never reach as far as our play point maximum goes. And who doesn't want to take an extra turn, an extra attack turn, an extra draw and everything and recover our play points? Dimension Shift is a crazy way to win games. And like I said earlier, a 1-of carrot for our Agnes Tachyons here, just to occasionally activate Lamplit Training of a Witch to Be for that extra push and damage. So yeah, this is basically the deck. Your idea here is mostly you're playing a semi-control plan, poking our opponent occasionally, setting up our combo turn to get to the part where we're dumping a couple Flame Destroyers on the board and casting Dimension Shift for 7, taking an extra turn, swinging with the Flame Destroyers, and potentially either using another Dimension Shift for another turn after that if you have the ability to. Otherwise, usually like a couple Flame Destroyers is more than enough damage to close out a game, because 2 Flame Destroyers going in is 14 damage. So all you have to really do before you get to your Dimension Shift turn is essentially hit them for 6 damage at some point, which is completely doable, especially since you do have the Merlin into the Demonic Strike package still in the deck. That is more than enough to get you there. Obviously, if your opponent starts healing, things get kind of awkward. In those matchups, you really have to be conscious of being able to do 2 Dimension Shifts in a row. So you can't really pop off as soon as possible. You got to make sure your cemetery is set up to do the double Dimension Shift. That is the important part there for closing out games where your opponent does a lot of healing. Besides that, guys, I mean, this is the deck. It's a short video, honestly, because I think at this point, most people know how this deck works. We've had this archetype and essentially the same game plan since set 1. We still are only on the Flame Destroyer into Dimension Shift stuff right now. Later on, this deck will get even better. With that being said, guys, hope to see you guys in the next video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you later. Peace.